Hi and welcome to, is this the first episode? I'm going to say the first episode of Are You Making Your Mind a Priority? We're going to be talking to other businesses, podcasting about mindset, mental health, emotional intelligence. Paul, I think most people know who I am, but I'm Cuddy. I'm a mind management coach. I support businesses with mindset and mental health, be it via coaching one-on-one with the staff, the employees and the leaders, or we're doing training. And I know we're closely linked, but I know that we're different because I know that you do a lot more emotional intelligence. So, Paul, introduce yourself. Tell everybody about Paul Cheetham from Life on the Tyne.
Oh, lovely. Yeah. So, yes, I am from Newcastle, born and bred. I've sort of gone to other parts and worked in other parts. I've always lived here because I love being a Geordie. I love from the place where I'm from. It's a fantastic city, and if you've never been, please do come. So, yes, it's fantastic nightlife and great beer, but it's more than that. There's a lovely warmth. There's lots of good stuff to see. So yes, come to Newcastle upon Tyne. It's fantastic. So, like a little bit about me. Before I got into HR, I guess, which was my first career, I was a person first. I was a real human being. Grew up as a little kid in Newcastle. Found a girl, settled down. If you want, you can marry. Did a bit of that. Two girls who are now 31 and 29, which makes me feel old. I'm a granddad. Supporter of Newcastle United for my sins, and love crisp sandwiches. So I don't know if that's really what you wanted to hear.
Oh, crisp sandwiches!
I
Do you know
know.
what? You've just started a conversation there. We might get completely off track because yesterday, all I was anchoring for, a Scottish word for food, was all I wanted yesterday was
a
crisp sandwich.
Yeah.
Buttered, thick butter on bread.
Ooh.
Crisps. Now, before we go into, and I'm not going to be analysing you in any way, Paul, but what is your crisp of choice for a crisp sandwich?
I mean, it's like, we'll get into maybe another topic. Potentially we're going to talk about optimism, that type of stuff. But like, it depends on the mood, so it's situational. But on a you can't beat. I think it's a standard staple, a lovely cheese and onion sandwich and just plain white bread. And I know I'm going to, like, one of my favourites is we have in the northeast something called a stotty, which you can get from an outlet called Greg's. And you cover it in butter, and it's even better because it's got little holes and bubbles in, so the butter goes in that, so you get even more of a buttery taste. And you do put, I know this is a bit cheating because it's a maize snack rather than a crisp, but a pickled onion monster munch never goes amiss in a
Oh, we're controversial on the crisp choice there. Controversial. I do like a pickled onion. Now, before we go into the podcast,
right?
And I'm pointing my pen because we're talking crisps and this is a serious conversation. Pickled onion monster munch now come in a flat crisp. They've started doing a crisp version of the pickled onion monster munch.
Well, I'm not sure.
I don't know if that's in Scotland. I know.
Yeah.
But yeah, there we go. Pickled onion for the crisp choice. There's going to be a lot of people listening and going, oh, what crisp would I have been eating? Right, fantastic. So we've diagnosed you as a crisp being. Not in problem with that in any way.
Word stuff now. Is
that let's get into the reason I wanted to do a conversation with you. I've been watching your LinkedIn. I know we'd spoken previously, and because I know we know Dave, and I know we're in a similar business, and I like the fact that when we're in similar businesses, we can still talk, we can still help each other. I think that's always an amazing thing. I was looking into something, and I wanted to ask you as a question, as an emotional intelligence master, if you like, coach and consultant and trainer.
Yeah.
I'm gonna drop the bombshell of what's the difference between positive thinking and optimism, because I saw a post you were talking about optimism, and I'm like, I want to have a chat with him about what's the difference for people, for businesses, for staff, for employees, because positive thinking sometimes has a stereotype of positive thinking's bullshit, right?
Yeah.
We can't always be in that constant state of positive thinking.
No, absolutely not. And I think it's associated, use that terminology, and what immediately sprung to mind for me is this like toxic positivity. And I guess coming from an emotional intelligence coaching place, And first of all, I'll make a little interlude and say I'm certainly not a master. I feel I'm still a student. I've been doing this for about 6.5, 7 years plus, and I still feel like I'm learning every single day. So I always want to have that mentality. And I think that sense of like positivity is almost like, despite not listening to yourself, despite the fact that you might be feeling really shitty that day, like put a positive spin on it. Just feels like it's if like you're wrapping it up and you're putting it in a cage, where your negative emotions, or not negative emotions, but your emotions that might be challenging, and that might be contempt, disgust, upset, anger, frustration, all that type of stuff. They are just data. They're just signals that telling you something's up. So I would say that positive thinking would be, or it'll be fine then, or let's just sort of sweep them under the carpet, is what springs to mind when you talk about positive thinking. It's like, ignoring the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
Where for me, that sense of optimism, or in the organization that I studied with, they're a US-based organization, they're called 6 Seconds. They actually have one competency which is called exercise optimism, because it's not just a state, it's a thing to practice, it's an activity. And I'm thinking with optimism, it's much more of what they term it is hope with a plan. And I love that sense of, yes, okay, there are possibilities there, even in difficult circumstances, or you're acknowledging the toughness and the shittiness, but actually, what's the plan with this? What are you going to do to bring this to reality, even if that might be difficult, tough, hard? So I don't know if that's particularly maybe defined it precisely, but those were the sort of things that sprung to mind when you asked me that question. What's your take on that, Cuddy?
I'm always very honest about saying that we all have ups and downs, and once we balance our emotions out, we'll have less highs and less lows. And I did recently, I took a dip. Even I was like, oh my God, with all the stuff that I know about mindset, about neuro-linguistic programming, I took a dip. My internal conversation, my monkey mind absolutely went totally downwards, in a downward spiral. And I was like really surprised that after the years I've been doing this and understanding it, I took a bit of a dive.
Yeah.
I think it was your post because I always what I found out from many years ago, when I didn't know I was in a negative disempowered state. So I always call it a negative disempowered state. That's when my judgment's a little bit higher. That's when I'm seeing social media posts and I'm judging other people for their posts. And I'm like, that's me not in a good place. That's always been a key decider of, that's me not in a good place. And I didn't know that in the past, because that's what was driving my emotions and my negative disempowered state. So when your post dropped in, I didn't have any judgment for it. I was like, so I asked myself the question, because I was struggling to find some positive thinking. So there's two things that I do now, and I saw your post and I'm like, optimism. I've missed out on my optimism, and I've actually missed out on my gratitude. I've actually missed out on gratitude, understanding what I should be grateful for. And it's one of those things that triggers people. Oh, gratitude's total bullshit. Oh, everyone has to say no. I'm like, no, gratitude is literally, when you're in a dark space, start looking for something you're actually grateful for.
Yeah.
It's not about once you've got everything, oh, I'm so grateful. It's like, no, you need gratitude when you're in that dark space and stuff like that, or going on a downward spiral. Yeah. And I started looking for it again. And it was optimism. I've lost my optimism. I'd actually lost my optimism on the skills that I have in the past. And I was like, so my confidence had took a hit, but my self-belief didn't.
Yeah.
So my confidence had took a hit, but my self-belief didn't. So I was still totally self-believing in a lot of things that I need to get done and stuff like that. And I was like, what is the missing ingredient, and why am I stuck in this little downward spiral? I think it was for about 10 days, which in the past had been for years. So that little 10-day blip was a lot better than what I'd had in the past. And I always say to people when I'm training and coaching, look, we are going to go down and up. It's just we don't want to stay in that place for months or years like a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And it was optimism. And that's the reason I reached out to you, because I was like, there it is. I'd lost my optimism.
Yeah.
And that's why I want to say thank you, first of all, for your post.
Thank you.
And I was like, what? Because I was trying to be positive, and I'm like, well, I can't be positive. I just couldn't shake what was going on. Yeah. And then I was like, I want to do the podcast. I wanted you to be the first one for the podcast. And I wanted to talk about what's the difference between positive thinking and optimism, because there is a difference.
Yeah. And I think it's like a sense of hiding, I think, versus like bringing it to the fore. And I think, accepting, some of the reality, because I still think there's like a myth around, somebody who's like, acting in an optimistic way as if they're the unrealistic ones. And actually, I think, people who show those optimistic traits are the ones who are mired in reality, because they're seeing things as they truly are. This is shit. And there's another quote, I can't remember who said it, but it's like, optimism is knowing there are possibilities even when you can't see them. And I think, and I love that sense of just going, there is good stuff, and that might be around the corner. It might be 10 days away. It might be 10 weeks away, but actually it's going to come. I haven't got a freaking clue, and I don't feel it. It doesn't feel it. I can't see it. I can't feel it. I can't touch it. I can't access it. But actually, in my head, there's this little thing that's a fixed thing, like you told about that belief, that fixedness of like, I've got the belief that things are going to come, but I still feel shit, and I'm going to continue to feel shit. And just a second thing for me, Cuddy, just when you were talking there, there was just, I saw that period for you as a one of like retreat, and when people go on a retreat to like heal. And I just, and I always see that times when we feel negative, it's a time for processing and healing. It's almost like, you're going on that retreat. So that 10 days was useful for you because that allowed you to retreat in and maybe wallow in some of that, stuff, but that's warm and comfortable. And even if it's like, even if it's mud, you kick them.
Yeah.
So there's lots of images there, but that sense of that healing time for you, and that's what it made me think of when you talk that way.
Yeah. And so, like I say, first of all, thank you very much. And then I started getting in, because when you start looking into things, you're like, I found, and I stumbled upon something, and I was like, oh, that's exactly what it is. If positive thinking's not serving you, because positive thinking, when you're not in a positive state, can be really hard. And there's something I'm going to share with you. I don't know if you'll know the book, but there's always something that I share with my clients when I'm coaching them one-on-one, or I'm coaching businesses, and it's about having the thought pendulum. Most people don't know when they're in a depressed state, when they're in a negative emotional state. And I'm well versed. In fact, one of the best books that I did read many, many years ago was Daniel Goleman's Emotional Intelligence, EI. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. I know that's everything that you'll be doing. And I started recognizing states that I'd been in the past where I was like, oh my God, I was not emotionally intelligent. And I found out, because I've never identified as quite a smart person, I was like, oh, I'm going to get into this emotional intelligence because it says that that's more beneficial than IQ. And if I was to do an IQ test, I've got a pretty good idea it would be quite low, but my emotional intelligence quite high. And because of that book, and you start recognizing and identifying with other people. Oh my God, why they're a bad leader, because it's my way or the highway, and it's just not good. You can see they don't have the emotional intelligence. They just don't. And it is generally the smarter people. I don't want to overgeneralize, but it's people with high IQ sometimes don't have that ability with emotions. And I think a lot of the times when we get employed, I've noticed I get employed with some businesses that probably need that, because they realize, look, I don't really understand my emotions or other people's emotions. Cuddy, can you deal with that? Yeah, not a problem. I can deal with that. I'm sure that's the same for you as well, Paul. But possibility thinking, I found to be really, really powerful, and it changes your perspective to, actually, I'm not in a positive thinking mode, but possibility thinking, we're creating more options. And when we create more options, what have we created?
And you just sort of, because I think all of us, like, human beings, our brains are designed to be efficient. They're creating well-worn pathways that make us do things quicker. Like if we're driving a car, we don't want to think about next time I'm going to steer the wheel. You're not consciously thinking that, you're just doing it. It's on autopilot. And we do that in our life. So when we're faced with confrontation, we will do what our brains told us is the most efficient thing. And that might be attack, withdraw, whatever. But that might not be right in that situation. And with this sort of possibility thinking, what you're doing is you're creating a state where you go, stimulus happens, I'm pausing, and I'm now listing, almost as if it was like a test. I was like, think like you tested school. What would Paul do if somebody comes to him and calls him a knob? Paul would normally withdraw, give Paul some other options.
Yeah.
Paul could, give his, really hard friend a call to come and chin this kid. Okay, that's different. I wouldn't have thought that before. It can withdraw. You could say, oh, you seem you're feeling sad. Is everything okay? Could decide to punch him in the face, could decide to withdraw, same as he normally did, but it's a conscious decision. So I'm giving Paul a list of six options that he could try. And I think at the heart of sort of this optimism is going, there I do have possibility. I have some agency in this situation. I might not have agency in terms of stopping that person calling me a knob, but what I've got to do is that agency of, I can stop and pause my brain from going down its well-worn path of just withdrawing, saying nothing, slinking away, and create six options for myself, of which I could pick 1, 2, 3, or a combination or whatever. So that's where I think that optimism comes in. I can have some agency to try things. Don't know if they'll work or not, but who cares? I'll learn from this. It'll be an interesting experiment with my life.
Yeah. And what it is for people that they might not understand, but if they have that possibility thinking, if they think, well, I think positive thinking's bullshit, and it can be, like you said about toxic positivity, it can be overused. But actually, just for clarification, I think, what is toxic positivity? Because I think that's a really powerful word. I mean, I'm like, why is there such thing as a toxic positivity? So explain toxic positivity and explain it in the workplace.
Yeah. I think, right. I mean, certainly, I can't say for yourself, Cuddy, but certainly a man of my age. I'm 53 now. When you started work, there was definitely a sense of like, all that baggage you've got at home, like leave it at the door, like leave your emotions at the door. We just want you to see, we need you to be positive about this project. Yeah, but what if I think it's going to like be a car crash? What if I've spotted this like marketing thing that really in a different language is a swear word, or no, just be positive. And I think it's the same for ourselves and people. And toxic positivity is almost a denial of the richness and the rich tapestry of our emotions. It's almost saying this part of you as a human is good, this like high, friendly, smiley, upbeat bit. But we don't have that. I mean, I would suggest that anybody who only has those emotions ever is, probably not human.
Possible.
It's not possible. So to deny, and it's going, those other emotions, we're going to, in the workplace, we want you to cut a piece of your humanity out and leave it elsewhere because we don't want that stuff. Yeah. And toxic positivity is like almost denial of me as a human being, and it's denial of like people as proper, full. I was going to say flawed. I used the term flawed in a conversation. So he said, "Oh, flawed. I don't really like that." And maybe my mind went into flawed in terms of we have different flaws, we have different levels.
Flaw, yeah. I could tell that would be a different, yeah, because of the accent.
That sense of, but I love even the sense of like, cracks in us. I use this a lot. So there's a Leonard Cohen song that says something like, "Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in." And I love the fact that our flaws are the bit that sometimes illuminate us. Those are the bits that where we start to get that light coming into us, because it can sometimes make us better. There's all of that sort of stuff. So, sorry, go off tangent a bit, but that toxic positivity is just about it at the core. It's a denial of us as a whole human being with all of those challenging and maybe exciting emotions. There's probably lots more to it. What's your thoughts on that, Cuddy?
Toxic positivity is I was deferring to you on this one, in all fairness, because I possibly am too positive, and I get really pissed off with myself when I'm not positive, and that's why I always question, am I a little bit toxic positivity? So I'm like, look, we don't need a plan, we just need to know the direction. Yeah. Yes, things will come up and we'll deal with them as they come along. And that's always been my mindset, but I know a lot of people need a plan in place, and I'm like, I can't work with a plan. And even me listening to my language there, I'm like, I'm already presupposing that I can't have a plan. But no, plans are good, but destination and moving forward is good. And as we start moving forward, we'll start working on the negatives. So yeah. I think we have to acknowledge that there is some negatives sometimes, but we can also, I know that we can be dismissive sometimes when people are, it's finding the balance between constant negativity and constructive feedback of, oh, I never thought about that. And thank you
Yeah.
very much for bringing that to his attention. So that's not a bigger problem. Like you talked about, if there's a language mistake in your marketing that says it's a swear word in a different language, that's not negative. That's constructive. So that's still a positive that someone's brought. But as a leader, listening to somebody's mindset towards, there's a difference between understanding people saying, I can't do something. This is gonna. Oh, what if everything goes wrong? What if everything goes wrong? To, oh, by the way, FYI, there's a problem with your marketing. That's a difference, isn't it? Because that's as leaders and as managers and things like that, you have to be able to decipher what's the difference between somebody keeping you on the right track to somebody who's constantly negative.
Yeah.
Where's the balance there, Paul? As with your experience, what's the balance? How can you defer, or how can you see the difference between constant negativity, not going to move, to toxic positivity? I'm not listening to anyone's negativity because that goes against my...
Yeah, and it is tricky, and I think it's always situational, and I think it is all about balance. And I think with anything, with the emotional intelligence competencies, it's not about like getting all your competencies right to sort of expert, because like who can really do that? And you can always work towards that, but sometimes it's about rebalancing that. Yeah, and I think if you get somebody who's always like stuck and always sees the risk, then they will lose out an opportunity. There's definitely, I think, it shows that, they're not going to see possibility because they're only looking at the danger that's in front of them.
Yeah.
What's beyond that door could be a lion, it could be a toxic waste. It could be, but it could be, the love of your life. And it also could be, so, if you had no facts to hand, it's like that might be the difference in terms of where that comes in. Now, what you would do, I would suggest a proper optimist would go and chat to his friends and go, well, which doors have you been through?
An optimist, I love it.
Which ones have you been through? Because I want the best chance of finding.
I want to pick the right door.
I want to pick the door that's got the pickled onion monster munch stotty behind it, rather than the prawn cocktail crisp. Rotten. So you've got choices. You can go, well, what are my options? And if you don't know, you might go, okay, I'm just going to give it a risk then, because what's worse than being stuck constantly in the same place? Sometimes being stuck, as we referred to before, sometimes a good thing. It's a healing time. It's like we don't have to always move forward at a pace. Like life's not like that. You'll be exhausted if you're constantly moving forward. Sometimes you need to entrench and go, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to stake out the ground that I've got. I'm going to rest while I'm at this point. Climbers, they get to a point at a peak, they've got to sit there for a bit because they're knackered, so they've got to sit there, maybe take in the terrain, see what the next bit looks like, wait for the clouds to pass and the snowstorm to go, because that's realistic. But the thing is, I'm still going to get to the peak. The sun will come out tomorrow, if I'm quoting from a famous film. So, all of that stuff. So I think that's where optimism, I would suggest, is rooted in realism, is accepting our nature of sometimes it's difficult and sometimes it feels like I'm in flow and I can accelerate. But other times I maybe just have to see, where we're going with this. And I just want to give a quote. Annabelle Jensen, who I think sort of is the chair of 6 Seconds, has this phrase, and I love it, and I use this often because people might not always see this, but I on me emotional intelligence, I'm always low in exercise optimism. Naturally, I'm optimistic for other people, but not necessarily always for me. But she has this brilliant phrase that I use all of the time: every adversity has a gift. And when I come up against adversity, I literally have this it's like this words going round in my head, because what that does is that takes me out of my misery and it helps me to start to look for the gift. What is the gift here? The gift is never work with that company again.
There you go.
Never do this type of work again. Never try something new in front of a new client that you've never done before. So, okay, so that's a gift. Yes, okay, I feel really bad. I'm still going to feel a bit shitty and it feels painful and I feel like, oh, do I know what I'm doing? But as soon as I flip to that, I'll go, okay, this is where don't try multiple new things in this situation. Try maybe new material with an existing client or a known quantity, and switch that around a bit. So every adversity has a gift, and I absolutely love and treasure that phrase.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great quote. Every adversity has a gift. That's exactly, yeah, when I think that's optimism. That is optimism.
Absolutely.
Is
Yeah.
understanding. I've always said that a positive mindset is not that every day is going to be rainbows and unicorn farts. It's not. That's not. If you've got the idea that a positive mindset is every day is going to be unicorn farts and smelling the roses every day, just not possible. Not possible. A positive mindset is exactly like what you've said there. A positive mindset is knowing that tomorrow could be an absolute ball bag of a day. However, I've got the tools to get through that, and that's positive mindset. That's that possibility mindset. That's optimism mindset. I feel like there's a joke in it somewhere. Optimism, positive, and a so and so walk into a bar. I feel like there's a joke there somewhere, and that might be the title of this podcast. Positive thinking, optimist thinking, and possibility thinking. Walk into a bar. That's the name of this podcast, right? That's it. We've now got the name of the podcast because this is what we're going to be talking about. And I think that's the important part. Is that's what decreases the toxic positivity.
Yeah.
That's what decreases toxic positivity, is knowing that tomorrow could be a bad day, but we've got the tools to get through it.
Yeah, well, I think we've covered, like, I guess the first, because in a very simplistic way, and I always like to do simple stuff because if it makes sense to me, I'm hoping that it makes sense to everybody else in the world. And so I think there's two things, and because I think I know this thing because I say I struggle with optimism as naturally. So I think the first thing is seeing the possibility, and then the second thing is just fucking do it. And like, this is where sometimes I'll think and I'll overthink and I'll think again and whatever. So I know that there's possibility there, but I feel like it's intangible. It's miles away. And then I even have something that's like, oh, Paul, just do it. Just go out there, just go for a walk, just go and try this, get up on stage and, do the karaoke stuff. Actually, is not an issue for me, but you know what I mean? For some people, I think you've just got to take that first step, just move. Take Nike thing, just do it. And so I think there's two elements of optimism: is see the possibility, pick one, just do it. So that's my take on that practical, putting it into real life activity.
And the thing that keeps people frozen is that inaction can actually be the worst thing possible, because the inaction, you're feeding back into that fear of not being good enough, the fear of all those things that stop us moving forward. And I think we like to overcomplicate the fears that we have in our life with these big stories. And once we break them down, and you actually hit the nail on the head there, Paul, where you said, I think if you can break it, keep it simple, stupid. It's an old saying, but keep it simple. Keep our diagnosis simple. Instead of saying somebody's got social anxiety, then they've got this label for the rest of their life where, oh, I've got social anxiety. No, you've got a fear of not being good enough in public spaces. We can work on that. What's going to be the easiest? Is it going to be saying I've got social anxiety, or is it going to be I've got a fear of being good enough? And a lot of people will say, well, I'd rather have a fear of not being good enough in a social setting, because I can work on that. Absolutely, you can work on that. So keep it simple. As human beings, we like to overcomplicate it with our stories and our language. So I think that's a really powerful thing there that we do as coaches and helping people move forward, is about keeping it simple. Keeping it simple.
And I think, we talked about a couple of tips, and certainly I use a lot of, like, my brain works best, I think, when I've got those phrases like every adversity has a gift. What did you mention earlier in terms of like what you would do to sort of get out of that funk? I
had a break. Yeah, so we never actually touched on that, but I've used it for myself. Is I have a thought pendulum.
Yeah, and the gratitude, I think,
So we've got negative disempowering emotions, which is judgment, which is contentment, which is anger's never actually. You'll probably agree with it. Anger's can be a positive and a negative emotion. In all fairness, I wouldn't genuinely put anger into a negative emotion, because sometimes it fuels us for the better. It gives us that reason to move. But on the other side of the thought pendulum, we have gratitude, joy, and happiness. And if I'm not, you can identify your thoughts, and then you can know your thoughts are telling you what kind of an emotional state. Your thoughts are driving the emotion. So you can, if I know my thought pendulum's off, I'm a little bit more judgmental. I'm a little bit more critical of others. I'm a little bit more woe is me.
Yeah.
A little bit you're an idiot, the language is off, and then we can bring that thought pendulum back by, well, actually, what am I grateful for? What would bring me joy? What would I need to be? How could I be more optimistic? Optimistic would bring that thought pendulum right back. And I think that's a powerful tool for what I do with a lot of my clients and stuff like that, is the thought pendulum. And that's from a book, Paul. I don't know if you've read it. I tell every podcast, I'm sure I mention this, and it's never in anybody's top 10 books. And I'm like, how not? Stop Thinking, Start Living by Richard Carlson.
No, I haven't read it either. So
Stop Thinking, Start Living by Richard Carlson. Top 5 books.
Yeah.
Right up there with Daniel Goleman, Emotional Intelligence, The Chimp Paradox, The Untethered Soul, by Michael Singer, a great author, and Stop Thinking, Start Living. I might create a top 10 book. I've got to create a top 10 list, because I'm like, people have not. Oh, The Courage to be Disliked. Have you ever read Courage to be Disliked?
I haven't read that one. I was thinking we were going to go like the Bruins, a Willie Annual or something
No,
like that.
I'm not actually Scottish. I live in Scotland, but I'm not actually Scottish. I'm from Sheffield.
Well, I still get an annual every year. I mean, my mum's so,
well, you're not far over the border. I know you're not far over the border.
Yeah, so that's the thing. It was a Sunday post on a Sunday, all that type of stuff. So anyway, we digress away. But like,
we do digress.
I guess I just wanted to say, like, in terms of, when I work with people, and so particularly if they want to practice optimism, like it's always fascinating to see what they do to try and sort of work around that. And even like I was going to say simple things in terms of thinking about like a person who they admire, or like a song, that resonates with them, even like talk about food, or even like wearing different clothes. So people can strangely sort of find maybe the energy to do something in those things, listen to the right music, watching the right films. Real everyday life things can be really helpful to give you an inspiration to maybe have that sense of what's next, and how do I move forward from this, and not how to cry at that good film, or I listen to Higher and Higher by Jackie Wilson, or I've ate that sort of comfort food that's made me feel like, okay, I've done a bit of wallowing, I can move forward. I've wore me me finery, me finest sort of mankini or something to
mankini, what a
to cheer or disgust the general populace in equal measure, to make them feel better about their lives. So there's lots of what I would say simple everyday things where you can focus doing something a bit more positive, or something that's going to heal you, by looking at everyday things that we might do, but in a consciously chosen way.
Yeah, I think it's a powerful thing. I think most people they miss out on the importance of emotions. And when I'm talking to businesses, and I do some mental health training now, as well as we do mindset, I'm talking to people and saying, mental health is emotional health. Yeah. And they're like, no, mental health's in that. No. Mental health is anxiety, stress, and depression. That's their emotions. They are emotions, and they are driven by what we're thinking. It's our thought that creates those emotions. It's always thought first. And a lot of people are like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that. Yeah, absolutely. Your mental health is your emotional health. Look after your emotional health, your mental health will be absolutely fine. So what's the top 2 tips for optimism for anybody, Paul? For you being an optimism guru. See what I did there? Paul's going, nah, I'm not a guru. For being an optimism guru, what top 2 tips do you have for anybody, any business, any person listening to this for optimism?
Right, okay. Can I give 3?
Hey, go for 3. I love it.
So again, I think you've probably heard it in the podcast. So I use a technique called the Optimism Bridge. And there's 3 bridges that cross the river. And this is if you're in a place where you're feeling powerless, so you've got no agency, you feel that the terrible things that happen are permanent and they're going to be forever, and they're pervasive, they go across every aspect of your life. So start thinking about and cross those 3 bridges to, actually, is this permanent? Is it going to be forever? Well, probably not. Well, if you get divorced, probably the chances are, unless you're, Richard Burton and what's her name, then it probably is going to be forever. But hey, you're going to find love again. So, love's not beyond you, but maybe that marriage is. But it's a permanence thing. And then it's isolated. So if you're having a crap time at work, but hey, I've got my health, I've got my kids, I've got me whatever, I've got my friends, I've got money, I've got a roof over my head. So it's not ignoring that, but it's just going, I'm going to box that off. I'm not letting that bleed into something else. So think about, is this isolated rather than is it across every single aspect of my life, this terrible thing? And the final one, and I started with it, but I'm going to end with it, this sense of effort. Rather than thinking, oh my God, I've got no agency here, actually, if I put effort into it, this will happen. So if your wife wants to divorce you, you might not be able to make her change her mind, but you might be able to keep the dog. You might be able to, split the record collection in half. You can try and work well with that and make it go through quicker so that, the pain ends quicker, So you have choice. You might not be able to stop like the thing. You've got the choice that you can do that. So it's not permanent. It's not, pervasive, and you're not powerless. Think about it as it's temporary, it's isolated, and with effort, you can do something about it. So perfect. There's the three things that I want.
I love that. I love that. And on that bombshell, thank you very much for taking part in the first podcast of Are You Making Your Mind a Priority?
Yeah, lovely. And just finally, we started off with Newcastle. I'm going to end with Newcastle. So I like to think of Newcastle as a place that's gone through its difficulties and it's had its challenges and economic and all that type of stuff. And I think we're really going well as a city and as a region. But Newcastle has 7 bridges and is famous for its 7 bridges across the Tyne. And I like to think that gives us as Geordies, even in difficult times, that sense of like hope and optimism. There are places to go and we do have options. So I want to leave you with that.
I love that hope and optimism, because we can often feel like we've looked. Have you ever looked into another great book, Power versus Force? Have you read Power versus Force?
I don't think I've had that one either.
Oh, Power versus Force, Dr. R. Hawkins. I think it's R. Hawkins or I think it's Richard Hawkins. Power versus Force. And you look at the emotional scales that people have and where they resonate on the scale. It's all about vibration. Phenomenal book. I'm about 3/4 of the way through. I lent it to somebody because I went, you need to read this book. Oh, why? Just read it. I know it's one of those things when people are, why is there something wrong with it? No, it's a really good book to read. So Power versus Force. It's all about emotions and the emotional scales that we have. Really good book. And he's done a lot of books about the states of consciousness that we find ourselves in as well. Yeah. Because it's a hard thing to prove. There's still the proof of consciousness and where it is, and it's a phenomenal, great book. Thank you very much, Paul. Much appreciated. As always, big love from Cuddy. Thank you very much for tuning into the first of Are You Making Your Mind a Priority, the podcast. And it was all about optimism with Paul Cheetham of
Paul Cheetham Coaching and Consulting. And thank you very much, Cuddy. I want to give you some appreciation today, if you don't mind, if we can end on some of that. I always appreciate your sartorial style anyway, but just your energy and your reality and also your optimism too. So I want to appreciate you for those things today.
I love what you did there, Paul, and thank you very much. You have nothing but gratitude, and thank you very much for taking time out of your day, because I know that you're busy, and you jumped on this quite quickly when you said, do you want to do a podcast? Because I wanted to say thank you to you. So, Paul, much appreciated. As always, big love from Cuddy. And just remember, if it's in the mind, it can be managed. All right.
Take care. See you later.
Bye.